Hello, my name is Gina,
And I'm Anna.
and welcome to our podcast, The Spiritual Hour. Excuse me,
Mhm.
I thought there's a frog in my throat or something. I'm like about to cough. But yes, today we are doing part two of astrology, aliens, AI, oh my, and so
Mhm.
last topic or episode, well, the week before last. Basically, we were trying to get on, but of course, technology, always technologies. But anyways,
It does not like us.
mm,
Not together, at least. Separately,
apparently
we're
not.
fine.
But yeah, we spent quite a bit of time on astrology, and so we
Mhm.
will still cover the last few houses, but we want to be a little bit more quick with it, so we can talk about aliens again and also AI again. Oh,
Yes.
AI for the first time. And so we have the card here being self-esteem, also yellow. We're
Ooh.
just yellow for today.
Ooh.
Fun fact, many people don't know this, but in different traditions of chakra systems, and more specifically, when you are working with the geometric shapes, the root chakra is yellow.
Oh, I did not know that. That's cool.
Yeah, it's mainly if you're using geometric shapes is what. So if you're using like a cube, and then the moon, and then the triangle or whatnot, and as you go up. But yeah, that could be a whole nother episode, honestly.
It
The chakra.
honestly should be. Yeah.
Um,
Cool.
we have self-esteem. I possess gifts of the soul that benefit me and others. And I feel that could be found in your astrology chart, like your specific zone of genius, so to speak. But then that's also like I feel the self-esteem card takes it a bit further and says you validate yourself. So you don't need your astrology chart.
Mm.
You don't need I mean, of course, in a very grounded root chakra way. But yeah, you can like really center in your own self in that way. So yeah, that's the card of the day or
I like
whatever.
it.
All right, so to give you an overview of astrology, wow, I've even learned so much since the last podcast that we've done, like the degrees or the orbs. Um, there's so much to astrology, so it really has to be something you're dedicated to if you are committed to learning it, or working with like a professional astrologer could also be very helpful. But yeah, it's a lot to learn. But we were talking about the houses last time, and we went through 1 through 7, and we were also comparing it to our personal charts. And we ended on seventh house, so we were going into the eighth house. I don't. If you want to recap, watch last week's episode. We're going to keep it going here. Starting with the seventh house again, actually, because I was pondering a little bit your chart because you have Saturn in your seventh house, and seventh house is the house of relationship, marriage, partnerships, etc. And I don't know if you're how come she's in a long-term committed relationship basically, and so I'm just like, how is she having Saturn in the freaking seventh house? But then looking at her chart as well, if it will let me do that, I think you also have different planets there too. So yeah, your chart in the seventh house is really interesting to me. I've never seen um this must be different house system, isn't it? Yeah. In a whole sign, she has it there. But she also has Uranus and Neptune there too. So
Oh,
I guess it just depends. I guess it
interesting.
okay. And yeah, in my house it's empty. All right, so going on to our eighth house, that is the house of sex life, taboo, interest in occult, esoteric mysticism. And for me personally, I think the occult, the esoteric, and the mysticism are kind of the same thing, just maybe different viewpoints, so to speak.
Mhm.
But I feel they all kind of build upon each other. We have inheritance, transformation, money given to you, partnership, and death, psyche, and also stress. So the eighth house is house of Scorpio. I know that because I was Scorpio. And so it's a very interesting house. It's a house that I'm more mystified by, more um I don't know, just it's a lot for me to take in whenever I look at the eighth house. And I know for me, I have my Leo there. So of course,
Mhm.
being a Scorpio and having your North Node Leo in the house of Scorpio is very, very interesting to me. Um, and yeah, so that's the eighth house. Very interesting house. Still one I'm like grounding in personally.
So what
Um,
does having a Leo in that house mean?
well, North Node and Leo, for me, that's definitely about North Node being like where you're going or like what is your north, and then Leo being like the big like very heart centered, but also very like magnetic. I feel.
Mm.
And so that being an eighth house and it's also retrograde in my chart, I would say that there could be space between my personal magnetism and where I know it could be. Um, and well, this is how I experience it, anyways. And um, just having a deep center, I would say, but also needing to radiate that outwards. For me, it's I think it's about outward radiation. Yeah, it's a very
Mm.
strange house to me. I guess you can tell in like the way I'm describing it. But yeah, so it's a nice placement, I would say, but it's a very intense placement as well because it's Scorpio, honestly. So it's everything intense, deep, depth and not darkness per se, but a little bit of darkness, So it's very interesting. Um, and
Mhm.
okay, yeah, that's it for that one. I don't know how I read that wrong. We need to do, anyways. So moving on to the ninth house. It's staccatos today, guys. Moving on to the ninth house. Also a very interesting house. I think it's ruled by Sagittarius, but I could be wrong. My next thing is learning about house rulerships, so I need to do that. So basically, like what sign or planet rules each house. I know that
Mhm.
is the second house, Scorpio's the eighth house, Aquarius, no Uranus, I believe. What? Sorry, like my laptop is like, oh, it's about to die, but I'm like, but I have it plugged up. Apparently, it's not plugged up, so I'm gonna plug it up in the other socket, so I don't die. Okay, yeah, there we are. But yeah, so I'm still learning. But anyways, ninth house, college, expert, education, religious beliefs, openness to foreigners, and exploring outside the cultural comfort zone, foreign travel, and also could be linked to God as well. So it's a more expansive house. So that's why I'm thinking it's ruled by Jupiter, I want to say, but I could be wrong. But it just seems to be that. And I know I have my Mars there, I believe.
Oh.
Um, Mars is like how you attack life, how you go about things.
Mhm. Which makes sense for you because like you're so like aggressive isn't the right word, but for lack of a better like term, like aggressive because that's like Mars, very like headstrong, very like getting in there, very much like we're just gonna go balls to the wall basically.
Hmm.
And like I think that's how you approach, well, not I think, but I know that's how you approach knowledge and
Hmm.
like seeking
Learning.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
learning. So that makes a lot of sense. What's
Mhm.
mine? Because I
Um,
hate school. So I'm like interested, but I love to learn, but I don't like school. So I always felt like they don't teach
you
right.
have your Sun and Mercury there, which is very interesting. Um,
Oh.
for me, but it's in Pisces, so it would make sense that you wouldn't like that because Pisces is more dreamy, it's more out there. It's like they say it's we're in between like both worlds because my moon is Pisces, so that's why I say we because it's very very important placement. But I view it as like everything is inherently spiritual, but we have been
Mhm.
like, separated, and so we have to like. I think for us, we operate from that very like pure spiritual center, but then
Yeah.
how the world around us is built. So that's
Yeah.
where it become like
That makes a
weird.
little freaking sense. And
Yes.
it's so frustrating because
Yeah.
I'm just like, no. Like
That's not
I,
the first one. So
that's
you would
not
be like the
how.
one person who like would do like the education reform or like have a specific way that you learn that like you inspire. And you don't have to do that obviously, but like that's kind of like what the sun being there,
Mhm.
just like that new way of conceptualizing.
That makes a lot of sense because not only do like I just not resonate with school and like that like very structured way of learning, like I also am very intuitive with my knowledge. So a lot of the times I just seemingly guess things and I'll be correct. So I'm just like, what the fuck do I need school for when I'm like basically validated by the universe in my inherent knowledge? So like that kind of like adds to my ego of like, I don't fucking need this shit. Sorry, excuse my French, but I don't need
Yeah, and
this.
then it's the Pisces energy to being there too, being like the oldest sign, so being one of the wisest, being one of the most mature, and like just having that perspective. So it's like I already see it, I
Yeah,
already know. So it's yeah, it's a
exactly.
very, very cool place. And not that's not saying
That
all Pisces
makes
are smart or like wise, by the way, but it you guys do when you dig deep enough, there is that innate, you know, knowledge and wisdom.
mhm, that makes sense. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and this
Um,
it really like makes you think because it's like I was saying, I think in the beginning, how like we can validate ourselves, but then we have this whole system that says, no, you need to have this thing, and then this thing, and
Yeah,
then
you have to check all the boxes in order for like you to be, XYZ person. I'm just like, but people aren't like that.
yeah,
Mm.
and yeah, dilemmas, dilemmas. But I see. So we have 10th house, and this is the house of your father, apparently. But again, I think I mentioned this in the beginning. They also that fourth house is with the father as well. But I would say fourth house is more like family life, and that definitely includes the father. But 10th house is just the father. So just knowing that open to interpretation kind of with that one. But public image is very like commonly accepted there. Career ambition, social status, social norms, where when you are seen or how you are seen, or like even the 5 W's, so who, what, when, where, why, and then how you are seen. I love the 5 W's. I'm like, damn, they really like one thing about school, sometimes they bullshit us, but who, what, when, where, why, and how is one of the most thorough ways to investigate any piece of data that we
Yeah.
can ever possibly have. And I love that little
Mhm.
whole thing in there. But anyways, 10th house. And I know for me, um, in the whole sign system, nothing's there. But in the Pelicitus, I have my Chiron there. And that really resonates because there's like this father thing, whole thing there. And I don't know, I can see it in my career as well. And then my sun is there, I believe, in my Mercury, I believe, as well. So depending on what system. But I think overall, I resonate more with whole sign in general. But I think there's also
Mhm.
like the different of it's like literally how like in math they would say solve this problem, and then like you will solve it your way, but then they were like, oh no, we want you to do it this way, like the
Mhm.
ladder method versus like the regular way. I don't know what the regular way is called to do like
Girl,
multiple,
I don't know.
but it's like the same bullshit. In the whole sign chart, and you have your moon and Venus there, and that's in Aries.
Oh, yes.
Very interesting.
Interesting.
This could be interesting father dynamic. I guess not being headstrong, but Aries is it's like you are very headstrong because you have Aries and then you have your Pisces. So Aries is like I'm the fucking leader, and then Pisces is like I'm the boss because I have all the wisdom. So put that together, you are very headstrong. Actually, you're like
It's very difficult. Yeah.
it's almost like maybe you even like could read your parents and like kind of see like not what your parents were doing wrong, but like almost giving your parents wisdom and giving them like just very mature. And so having your Venus there almost like doubles down on that. But Venus and you have your Venus in Aries, do you? Wow, that's very interesting. You do. You do, you do.
That makes sense.
Yeah, Venus in Aries also has somewhat of a somewhat of a leader. We can discuss the other portion in your personal reading. I
But
wanna
yeah, that it
being a leader.
it does indeed make sense. Yeah.
That's the 10th house. I guess Venus, their social status. It's like it's all about you, but it's not all about you in the negative way, but it's all about you in the sense that you know what you want and you know like what you stand for. And so when
Mhm.
it comes to like your public image, your career ambitions, the social status, the social norms, it's like you can properly articulate that and move towards it as well. And very well developed um, ideas around it and imaginations around it. Very interesting. I like those placements a lot. And yeah, a Venus, Moon, Pisces, Sun. That's a very interesting combination. It's almost like it's when you begin to read people's charts, you can see the poetry basically in it, and it's very cool. Just like to see how like, oh, this one interacts here, but it's almost like a perfect balance of like interaction. Um,
Mm.
very cool. So we have 11th house. This is your friendships, organization, group, your gang, not in that pow pow way, but that a congenial way. Your gang and clique, memberships, wishes, luckiest house, apparently. I have
Oh.
a stellium here in Scorpio, and I know Aquarius rules this house.
Mm.
Aquarius is ruled by who? Who? Um, they say Uranus. I say Saturn, but it really
What?
depends. It really depends because it's like if you use like the seven sign, then I don't include Uranus or Neptune. But if I do, then I do, and it's just it depends. But this I experienced this stellium. I have my Chiron here in whole sign. I have my Sun, Mercury, and Venus here. Um, I would say that I've always had very interesting friendship dynamics for sure. Always felt like kind of like in the group, but not of the group, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, and I would say that would be in memberships too. So that's the Chiron there, the Sun. I've always wanted to develop my social circle, obviously. Um, and I can have difficulties communicating at times with people. Uh, and the Venus there, I don't know because I've never dated a friend before. Well, actually, I have dated some friends before. Um, so yeah, I guess that's kind of how that plays out a little. And then that's like very crude. And I don't think you have any planet placements there. Um,
Oh. Mm. So it's empty or
it's an empty house, but you have Taurus there.
wait, what
Um,
happened? Say it again. I didn't hear you.
it's you have an empty house there, but you have Taurus there. So that
Oh.
depends because it depends on who you believe the house. I mean, who you believe rules Aquarius, basically. Um, Saturn and Taurus, that's Venusian energy. They can get along. It depends. It really depends. And then Uranus, not so much, I would say. But oh, that's what I was thinking. Yeah, because I they could be like a pair or like a pair of energy, like the very like fatherly or like mature masculine energy and the more like softer feminine energy. So it depends. But
Mm.
I don't know. I guess it depends. You know, have you seen how it depends in your own life with your friends?
Interesting. Hmm.
Mm,
Huh. That'll be something to talk about afterwards because I think I have an inkling. But yeah, definitely.
mm,
Yeah, I need more insight on that one.
mm. And then last but not least, we have the 12th house. 12th house is ruled by Pisces, I believe. Um, oh, could it be? No, no. I was thinking like maybe it's like each house is ruled by like the
In the
corresponding.
order, yeah.
Like, I don't think so. Yeah, because that would be I'll have to see. Anyways, 12th house is ruled by Pisces. And so this is your hidden enemies, areas of unawareness, addictions, dreams, fantasies, psychic abilities, subconscious, um, the subconscious, and possibly also hermit, isolation, maybe even things we are unclear about when it comes to fantasies. So it's a very dark house, so the very dark
Mm-hmm.
of energy there.
It's like the deepest, darkest, and not darkest in the sense of like negative, but just like the part of you that probably doesn't get shown in the light often. Like the things that you hold to yourself, like that's kind of like what I'm getting, which
Yeah.
makes sense because like Pisces don't share. We don't share our feelings with other people like at all. So that makes a lot of sense, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know I was going to say that like the ocean almost how like there's depths we have explored, but then there's
Mm-hmm.
the ocean, and that's like the no man's land of like being in the ocean to where like, you could literally die just being there. Um,
Mm-hmm. It's not for the faint of heart.
mm-mm. And I know I have my Pluto there. Pluto. Pluto is going to be the higher octave of Mars. So it's
Mm.
more refined energy, but still having that presence of that very like masculine energy. And you have nothing, it's another empty house for
Oh.
you there. And I know for me, um, I don't know how this really plays out in my life, but I think that's kind of the whole point because it's an area of unawareness, you know? Um, I do know that perhaps my psychic abilities are generational, but I'm not really sure because we don't really like have that sort of family where like, oh, we like read cards or we do like we're
Mm-hmm.
clairvoyant, we're clear like sentient, we're not like that
Mm-hmm.
family. Um, I do know that I do stay by myself a lot. People will probably consider that to be isolation. But I was reading something and I think it really comes down to like, you know, understanding what the purpose of the connection is in your life and
Mm-hmm.
if it really drives with who you are overall. Um, so I don't know. Yeah, this is a very complex energy, the 12th house. I know that I have my moon aspecting this house, and that basically means there could be some depression there, and I definitely have experienced that. And just overall like sadness, melancholy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
having the moon or having that aspect, the moon to the Plutonian energy in the 12th house, and my moon is in the third house, by the way. So it's in a very like congenial house. So it's a very interesting energy. I think that this is because it's Plutonian, which it's more like generational. I suppose that I will have more context as I age and get older with this particular house and how it plays out in my overall life. Um,
Interesting.
yes.
Someone wants to know if you're psychic.
I would say that I'm more intuitive than psychic. I mean, I have had like, precognitive dreams. Um, so I guess that makes me psychic, but I would say, I don't know. I would say psychic abilities are how we channel intuition. And so
Mm-hmm.
more so say I'm intuitive versus psychic. So
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question. And you have Gemini there. It's an empty house, but the energy of Gemini is there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So what does that mean?
I don't know.
Because I
Because I'm
always
like
thought like
already like fuzzy with the 12th house and having no planet there but Gemini energy. I'm like, I don't know. I know Gemini is like not it's like two-faced, but like we have a
yeah.
very negative connotation when it comes to being two-faced, but it could just
Mm-hmm.
be like two variations even of the same energy. Um,
Interesting.
I don't know.
Hmm.
Um,
Interesting.
and that's all. That's all the houses. That's it for the astrology portion of
Yeah.
things. Um, I deeply love astrology. I think it's a very cool way to experience yourself. And yeah.
Yeah, experience yourself and then like other people and then like yourself in relation to other people and then other people in relation to you, which is like a different dynamic. So there's like three different sides, I feel like
Hmm.
definitely kind of gets explored, which is cool because it's you when you're by yourself, it's you with other people, and then it's how other people experience you based on the stuff in your chart. And like it's
This is this Piscean wisdom. She just articulated that so well. Yeah.
it's just so it's just a lot to it and it's great. It's definitely overwhelming,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I
but
would say though, if I could like go back to the beginning of my spiritual journey, I was just thinking about this. I would say, Gina, even if you feel overwhelmed by astrology, still learn it. At least start with your own chart and really
mhm,
learn, because if you can understand your own chart, you could really understand other people's chart. And of course, maybe you don't want to understand other people's chart, and that's fine. But like if you understand your chart, you really understand it. And so
mhm.
it's very cool.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Definitely gives you like insight into yourself and like how you move through the world, and which I think is important. It's just another aspect of like being self aware and like understanding yourself, which I think is important if you're going to have interpersonal relationships because
Mm-hmm.
you can't like not understand how you are going to react to something and then expect someone else to understand where you're coming from. So it's just that's not how that works. But
Yeah.
yes, very very interesting. We definitely. Hmm?
And I was also thinking of like how we externalize what the planets mean. And I
Mhm,
understand that because they do exist physically, externally, apparently. But it's also a very internal process as well. Um, so, like, experiencing, for example, me being a Saturn ruled being, experiencing that Saturn ruledness internally,
mhm,
experiencing how, like, I can delay myself or how I can restrict myself, and seeing that within yourself and not just viewing it as something like bearing down upon you, basically, is what I'm getting at there.
mhm. Yeah, I see that. Just it's just another tool that we can just put in our arsenal, which I think is very
Indeed.
helpful.
Indeed.
Mm-hmm. All right, you ready for some alien talk?
Yes, I want to start off with this awesome quote that I found.
Ooh.
So this teacher, I don't vibe with everything that she talks about, but some things she says, I'm like, holy shit, like she just is so on point. Oh, wait. It's not really about aliens. I guess I should preface it, but I think it applies when it comes to like the context of aliens. I'm just going to read it and then kind of explain. Okay, so she says, we have been speaking to each other as though we are all in the same sphere of consciousness. We are not. What we have been seeing is not a rivalry in ideas or even politics, but rather completely different levels of consciousness trying to establish a social homeostasis. And that reminded me of the alien talk, and her name is Gigi Young, by the way, if you're curious about who she is. But that reminded me of aliens because it's kind of like the conversation around the aliens. But again, like I'm just concerned about like what entities are even like attracted to the planet, and
Uh,
like and she also said that you know what a true alien, they wouldn't really even need technology, they wouldn't even like use technology per se. They would like have a certain consciousness level that allows them to like physically bring their vessel here and kind of be like a catalyst for true human evolution. And
mhm.
wow, to think that, I'm like, I was thinking like, holy shit, Gene, this is something really crazy to say, but like that makes more sense than an alien arriving in a ship.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
think it's like it's interesting because I feel like there's constantly three different forms of like aliens that like I think we think of. One being the aliens that like you're talking about more like on the spiritual, like extra and interdimensional like beings, more consciousness based, slash even more like biblically, because I have seen some Christians and even just like non-Christian but like religious people speak of aliens in terms of like demons. So even like and also not even like but and also in terms of like angels, like we just don't know what these beings are in terms of like the Bible and like in like a religious like scope, so we can kind of like put them under the category of aliens, especially how they're described in the Bible. I don't understand how the angels in the Bible are like weird. Like
Mm.
how they're described. Like I want to say, and don't quote me, but I think in Revelations there's one in particular that's like described, and it's like spherical shaped, and it has like it's the one with like 1,000 eyes or something. I'm just like, so that's the angel. Okay, cool. Like, all right. So, like, even in that, they're described in like a different way. So, we can take that to mean something else. We can group that in the more like less of like an angelic like state and more in like a alien state, because it's so foreign to what we look like and what we think that our creator would look like if he did indeed create us in his image. Then the other things that he created you would think would follow the same template, and the fact that they don't, we can categorize that as like an alien sort of like thing because they don't look anything like us. Then you have the like scary aliens that are here to conquer, take over their advanced civilizations, usually from um, another planet, because it's weird to assume that we would be here alone in the solar system and just in the cosmos in like the grand scheme of things. Like it's odd to just be like, yeah, we're it. I'm like everywhere. Like that just doesn't make any sense.
That's
But
such
okay.
an even such a depressing thought. I'm like, holy shit, that's we're all that's there. Like that's not.
Yeah, like I don't want to be the only thing here. Like I think it's weird. Like you're right. It is very depressing. It's like just kind of like, really? That's it? Like I can't even just like happen upon another like being, like there's no, I don't know, it just doesn't seem, that doesn't fit well with me. I'm just like, no, there's definitely something else out there to be explored, because why would we be here having this experience and there's nothing beyond this? Then what's the point? There would be no point for our souls to come down here and be like and express in this form to interact with each other and then interact with things beyond us. Then like what's the point of it all? Then you start to spiral and be like, well, what's the point of me being here, sort of a thing. And I don't want to go down that road. Like I don't want like like then it just becomes like a whole like weird like depressive sort of a thing. And like I like to think
my
that there's
moon,
something out there.
my moon and Pisces stuff can't take
Yeah,
it.
I just can't take that. I refuse to believe that. Like, no, thank you. I don't like that. And then I totally forgot the third thing I was thinking. But let's just stick with those two for now, because it was like a 3 point thing, and my brain went. But anywho,
Well,
um,
you
hmm,
said, you said the technology one's the second one, right?
yeah,
Hmm. I don't know then.
I was thinking of something else along those lines
You'll
of like
remember.
how hmm?
You'll remember. You have to.
We just have two today. That's fine. But yeah, I think it's interesting how the term alien like can be different things depending on like who you're talking to. If it's someone more religious, then like they might bring in like angels and demons into it. If you're talking to someone more spiritual, it might be more like interdimensional, extra dimensional, plane sort of a thing. And then if you're talking to a conspiracy theorist, it might be more like supremely like extraterrestrial, like not of this planet coming here. And then that can go either way of like helping or like harming us. And like that, I don't really think, I don't know. If there are more planets out there, like more solar systems and like more beings, I don't know if they're coming here and be like, yeah, I want that. I want to come here and take this. We don't have much to offer, in my opinion. That's just
I
me.
would say
Like, I'm
Earth
like,
is
there has
very.
to be something better out
I
there
would
that
say
you want.
Earth is very beautiful. Um, so I think
Yeah.
if I saw,
We
I'd be like,
could
oh my god,
probably
this
be
is
here to vacation, but I'm like,
yeah.
as
I just I think the aliens, honestly, like if they were like super intelligent and like super advanced as that like we like to think and believe, I don't think they'd want to be around us, to be honest with you. I don't think they'd
mm-mm.
be like, wow, I can have a stimulating conversation with these people. Like, I think they would need to be like, very intellectually, like, you know, stimulated. And I don't think we have much to offer of that on Earth. As
And
I
we're
think,
also assuming that all aliens are smart too. So then there's that. But and then that's another thing. It was like this is
well, I
why
guess they would have to be smart because they would have to get here, so they would have to like possess intelligence, I suppose, right?
that's true. But also we also possess the wherewithal to transport. We have cars, we have transit, and yet not all of us are smart.
Yeah,
So
I guess it is a projection to think that all aliens would be smart.
yeah, I think that's more of like maybe wishful thinking on our part and us assuming that because there is great technology that they have, they would be levels ahead of us in intellect. When, like, again, things tend to express themselves in patterns. Like our brain has wrinkles like a walnut. So I'm just like, like things get expressed in a certain way. So if other beings were also created by the same creator who possibly got it wrong with us, are we to not assume that he got it wrong with him too? I don't know. I feel like I'm extra Pisces today, so excuse me for being a little bit on the
Yeah, I guess
dark
we assume
end.
that like they would be the cream of the crop, but
Yeah, but there's no telling that they are.
yeah, who's to say?
Who's to say?
Who's to say?
Um, yeah,
Very
but
interesting.
I want to talk about Ancient Aliens because this is a show that you've never have. Okay, have you never heard of it or never seen it? Have you
So
heard of it? Oh, okay. So this show is wild. Basically, the premise for the whole show, it has multiple seasons, a gang of episodes, but basically,
you said what?
it
Is it like
has like it has a gang of episodes. It has a bunch of episodes. Um, Basically, the premise or the idea behind it is that um, aliens have shaped our world for basically the entire time that we've been on this planet
Mhm,
since like our conception essentially.
mhm,
They so and this is where it gets like very convoluted but like still also very interesting. There were reptilian like creatures that were already here before. Then you have aliens that came down and kind of intermingled with those reptilians. That's the first theory. The other theory is that the reptilian creatures that were here evolved much like we have evolved to this point, and they evolved to a point. millennia ago, like where they were super advanced. And then there's another like subsection of beings that evolved, which are us, the humans, and they intermingled with us through, I guess the only way that you could say it is like genetic manipulation of them putting their genetic code into humans and them birthing hybrid children. That's really far out there. I don't know if there's any truth to that. I don't know. Possibly. I never really rule anything out because I don't know. But going back to the first thing of like aliens coming down here and basically like shaping our entire world, that seems to be like the more pervasive thought. So you have them interacting with us pretty much since the beginning. They are probably the ones that built the pyramids. They are probably the ones that built Stonehenge, or at least humans built Stonehenge in order to communicate with the beings that left technology here and we're trying to like communicate to them. There's a whole subsection of humans that know of the existence of these beings and have been in contact with the ones that are still here, been in contact with the descendants of those, which would be like hybrid alien human offspring. And for some reason, there's a bunch of wars, like, pretty much like all the biblical things. Like, you remember the biblical story of Lot and his wife when they're leaving. It's not. I think when they were leaving Gomorrah, because I think Lot was from Gomorrah. When they were leaving Gomorrah, basically, God was like, hey, you guys get to leave scot-free. Don't worry about anything. Just don't look back as you're leaving. Lot's wife, who I don't think she had a name, looked back and she turned into a pillar of salt. What they suggest in the show Ancient Aliens is that there was a war that happened and like it was a war between, I don't even know, other factioning aliens and humans, and there was some like heavily powerful like radiation powered technology that they had, because when you go back into the area that they think Gomorrah might be, it's heavily irradiated. Take this with a grain of salt, but it's still very interesting. And then there's other places that they talk about, like what's the other one? It's this place in Turkey, which supposedly saw like a super crazy like cataclysm, again with like a radiological sort of like event that happened. I think it's called Göbekli Tepe, something like that, something along those lines. But it's very interesting. I don't know if the show is still going on, but it started in like 2010. I think I was in high school when it started. Maybe my freshman year of like high school, or maybe sophomore year. I'm not entirely sure which, but it had gone on for quite some time. Let's see. Someone said, "Do you know Sweden has a space range only to find aliens and not share it with the world?" I'm not entirely sure what a space range is. I don't know if they mean like a space, like
kind of like the other center.
maybe, or maybe like their version of what is it called? Area 51 here. That's interesting. There's a lot of like
one that has the Kali statue in the front of it.
oh, that's in is it Germany or Switzerland? No, that's the Large Hadron Collider. Yeah, that whole thing is weird. We did an episode.
It could be something similar to that, though, right?
Maybe. Because that's the particle accelerator thing that they had.
Yeah,
That opening ceremony thing that they had was freaking weird and like super occultish. I don't know for like the people that are watching have ever seen it. Just go look it up on YouTube. There's still videos up about it. They have a. It's not a Kali statue. It's Shiva. It's a Shiva statue
Oh,
because Shiva
it's
is the
weird.
destroyer of worlds.
Mm-hmm.
But Shiva in Hindu mythology is the one that comes at the very end, which is kind of like their version of like Revelations, kind of like our idea of like Christian idea that like Jesus would come back or God would come back, whichever one, I don't remember. But at the end, during the end times, one of them comes back. And then, so in Hindu mythology, that's like their version. So Shiva would come back and then like destroy the world to make it new again, because that's like his whole job is once the darkness takes over, he basically resets everything. So it's just really weird that in front of their like in front of like their building, like the center, like they have a Shiva statue. I'm just like, okay, strange, very, very strange. It's in northern Sweden, from what I heard. They hide photos of UFOs, etc. Okay, so I guess it's similar to our
Oh yeah, you're right.
what did they our Area 51.
Well, that was
I don't know.
a little discussion. It says it's called. Google says it's called the Estrengy. Estrengy.
Very strange.
Esrangy. I don't know. It's ESRANGE. I don't know if that's just internal. I just typed in
Oh yeah.
alien center or something. I don't know. Really interesting. And I know that I think it's kind of like each government has their own thing, but they all collude together. I know that's super like
And
conspiracy,
it's
but that's what I
see,
think.
that's what I thought too. But then like I remember in like the 2010s, like around 20 yeah, like 2010 to about like 2012, I remember like there was up on YouTube of like people seeing UFOs, people seeing aliens, people coming in contact with aliens, and like just like really weird things happening. All those like sky phenomenons that were happening, like those strange lights in the sky that like scientists and like NASA was coming out and saying like, oh, it's just it's just light refracting off the clouds and then bouncing back to Earth and then bouncing back into the sky and like creating like these really like crazy patterns. Then another one was saying that they're just like a lot of like electromagnetic activity in the ionosphere with like the photons and stuff like that and like the electrons. And I'm like, okay, I can buy
Like
that.
sometimes a lie is so bad that it just makes you know it's a lie because it's just so bad. You're trying too hard.
Right? I can buy that to an extent because like
Yeah.
we do have the Northern Lights, and that's exactly what the Northern Lights is. It's literally photons and like electrons and protons bouncing off of each other and creating light. I get it. Totally get it. But when it's happening in multiple like countries around the world for like a few months period, I don't know about that. I don't know. It just seems a little weird. But I do remember Russia, either Chile or Argentina and Mexico, and I want to say India. Don't quote me on the last one, but I remember them like kind of like coming out and be like, "Hey, America, why are you not telling your citizens that there are aliens?" I'm just like, the fuck? Like, what do they know that we don't know? And why are these other countries trying to get our government to tell us about the aliens? I'm just like, and now, of course, literally what, 10 years later, 11 years later, now they're just like, oh yeah, aliens. Here you go. When like everyone's been wanting this for like, well, not wanting, but like wanting to be confirmed, for like the better part of a decade. Now all of a sudden you want to give it to us. And I'm just like, now, why now? Are you trying to like distract us from something?
Mm.
Someone said, I mean, Sweden is almost alone in the EU with this. So they have something up their sleeves, and then they said, damn Swedes. That's funny. That's interesting. I wonder why.
Mm.
I wonder why they're kind of alone in that have things, aliens. It's also interesting too because I remember like also in the 2010s. The 2010s was a very good time frame for weirdness in terms of like aliens and like conspiracy theories, like really far out there conspiracy theories. Where I remember it was like reported, by like various people on like YouTube and like subreddits on like 9gag and on like Reddit, where they were basically saying that like why around the world are there like secret underground like bunkers and like facilities, and they're like, well, what are they for, what are they hiding, what are they housing and stuff like that. So that's another like interesting one. People are saying that they were hiding like alien technology, that they've had like crashed ships for a while. um oh, we're running out of time, but on the
Let's
next
sprinkle
podcast.
some AI on top a little bit.
Oh yeah, let's talk about I guess some AI stuff. I guess really for right now the AI stuff kind of only pertains to um like writing and like artistic stuff, because I haven't seen a lot of like crazy like conspiracy stuff coming out of it for like what it means for like humanity in that sense of like Terminator sort of a, rising of the machines. I haven't seen that just yet, although I wouldn't rule it out. It hasn't gone like Terminator-y or like iRobot just yet with AI in particular. It hasn't gone that way just yet. Right now, it just seems like they're trying to figure out how they can be more greedy with it in terms of like not paying writers and artists and musicians what they deserve
they're using
for.
they're using AI to write scripts, and it's like, do you really
Yeah,
think that people like there's a limit to everything? And well, not everything, but there are limitations. And I think a hard limit is artistry. Artistry is simply a human trait. You cannot replicate that in
yeah,
machinery. And so trying to have AI write scripts, that's going to be dumb. And honestly, maybe it's like the last few movies they've shot out in Hollywood have been AI done, because the last like I don't know what it is, the last like 2 or 3 years every movie has been like subpar. I just haven't been
Yeah,
interested
it,
in it. Well,
it's
maybe
been really bad.
the only one I said I've kind of liked has been Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Freaking
I haven't
Puss in
seen that
Boots.
one. Everyone said that that was pretty good. I didn't
It
see
was
that.
okay. It was a good movie. I may rewatch it or something. I don't know, but it was okay. But other than that, like everything they've been making has had the shittiest. We're using bad words today. Has had the shittiest like rendering, like with like what do they call it? The
The
like
CGI.
CG or whatever. Yeah, CGI. Like it's been awful. Like
Yeah,
awful.
it's been bad. And like it's like a two-pronged thing because I don't know that they've used AI just yet
I feel like they
on
must.
that scale.
They must have. They must have because it's all been bad. Okay.
That's the and then like this is the other side of like the whole like strike that's going on is that like people are basically reporting that for like the last few years, like leading up to the strike, like all the production companies and like the execs haven't given the writers or the animators or any of like those departments time to come up with something and like really like fine tune it. They've been like, no, put it out now, and then they want like reshoots. Then they want to like completely overhaul the script at the end, and then they have to go in and like fix everything. So it's like
That's probably it too.
it's still like just been human greed that's like had the movies go to shit, go to hell in a handbasket basically.
Mhm. Like, I remember
So
like
I
I
think
remember
now the solution is AI for that reason,
yeah.
which like
But
that's
the
not
opposite
a
they need to
solution.
do.
Yeah.
That makes sense though, like them being basically overworked and underpaid, essentially. So you can't like produce
Yeah,
anything
essentially.
in that those conditions. Really.
Yeah. And Marvel, like DC with their Marvel stuff, has been notorious for that. Like all the nerdy stuff that I watch on like YouTube has basically said that anytime Marvel puts out a movie, they've almost every time they've redone the script at the last minute. They do heavy reshoots, which is why when the movie comes out, it seems disjointed and just kind of like, okay, I followed that train of thought. Now you went over here. Now I'm confused. So it's just one of those things where it's just like they want to still crank out these movies, and I think they've kind of like what's the term? Spread themselves a little too thin. So
Mm-hmm.
now they're just cranking out crap, and their solution is AI. Like it's crazy, like the amount of like people, just like regular people, having like a conversation like you and I are having, that have been like, oh, just do AI. You don't need to pay writers anyway. The writers get too much money as it is. I'm just like, mm, but like, yeah, they should be paid for their work because they're a writer.
Honestly, it's like the teacher thing, how like teachers are just so severely underpaid, it's almost ridiculous. Because they
Yeah.
do, even though they're not acting, they're doing most of the work, but it's the actors that get all of the recognition.
Mhm.
And of course,
Yeah.
it's a really, I couldn't be an actor because it's actually I think it's an art. You have
Mhm.
to really sell it. You have to like sell it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like the classic, just underpaid, overworked, underacknowledged.
Underpaid. Yeah. And then like the executives, since they're so high up, they don't see the work that's really going into things. So they just,
One
so
thing
they
I will
just
say, um,
hmm.
one thing I will say about Chat GTP, or because that's really the domain in which I operate. Oh, uh,
Okay.
we're having a
Clearly it's
fun
just
time.
like, no, you're done, you've hit your hour. Let's go wrap it up.
Really quick. One thing I will say about Chat GTP is that it does make you a more aware writer, meaning you can work with it as like an assistant, but it's never going to replace human intellect. Like I would
Mhm.
say it's maybe more of a grounded writer in a certain sense, more expressive at writing, but it will never be able to write poetry like I can or write a book
Yeah.
like I can, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, just knowing the limits of
I
technology.
agree. I think
And
like
technology really
it should
represents
def-
the ego.
Hmm?
It's like technology really represents the ego and how like the ego is limited, technology is limited. The end, you know?
the end. I just think that like chat GPT should be used as like a tool if like you get stuck, like definitely for writer's block and stuff like that, and maybe a way of like um if you want to like reboot something, use it in that sense to be like, okay, how can we? This is the source material. How can we stay true to this, but then also like change it to make it something new? You know. But beyond that, I'm just like, I don't think it should be used on a large scale like that because
Mhm.
it's just you lose the reason why art works so well and why it speaks to so many people is that like anytime a human creates something, they put a little bit of themselves in it. So you're not really seeing the art that they made, you're seeing them. And if you are looking at it, you're resonating with them where they were in that space and time when they created that thing. And that's resonating with you because you are here in a certain space and time interacting with it. And somehow on that level, you are kind of in the same emotional state that the other person was in, and you've like met in the middle through their art. And that's why like I feel like it resonates so well, like art with people. Why we like to look at art because like we're not looking at it, we are feeling the person that made it, you know? Which is why it's supremely sad that like a lot of artists didn't get recognized until they died. It's like, but Van Gogh was an amazing artist, but no one liked what he was doing at the time, which is terrible because like he's one of my favorites, honestly. Like I like his views. I like the fact that everything's so bright, but underneath there's a little bit of like darkness to it because I think that reflects the world a little bit more better, at least in my sense. How I view the world. There's always a little bit of like hidden something, and you really have to like look at it and like find it. But anywho, it's over an hour now.
Did you remember your third point?
Nope,
Mm.
it's fine. It's cool. Maybe I'll remember tomorrow. Maybe I'll remember in 2 weeks from now. That's how my brain works. It's okay. It's fine. It's all right. Okay.
Well, I think this will be the end of our podcast tonight. It was a really nice one. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Love talking about the astrology and, of course, the aliens, and then the sprinkle of AI there. And so I hope you guys did as well. And of
Yeah,
course, we'll be back again next week with, well, tomorrow actually.
tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow
Another
because we doubled up because of technological issues from last week. So yeah.
So we'll be back tomorrow with our topic. And so yeah,
Yeah.
I hope you guys have a lovely night. And yeah, my name is
Mm-hmm.
Gina,
And I'm Anna.
and this has been our podcast, The Spiritual Hour. We will see you again soon.
Bye
Bless.
bye.